I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Vern, thank you, my friend. So kind. Thank you for once again being Spartacus. I hope you're doing well. So hello, everybody. Welcome. Sci-Fi, sorry to hear about the Air Force junk. I hope that actually does work out. I don't know what's going on. You're welcome to share as always, but I hope that they straighten that junk out. What's up, Late Bloomer? Good to see you. How's it going? Vipers, that's a very clever joke. We were giggling about it. Nix, what's up? How's it going? Hope everything is well in your world. You're like 40% here and 60% watching playoff hockey. There's a big old fight last night. It was pretty fun. I don't think anybody... I don't know too many people that watch hockey, so I usually don't have a lot of people to talk hockey with. But that fight at the Lightning game was like, anyway. Cap scored one against the Panthers already. Well, that's unfortunate. I was kind of hoping the Panthers would do well. I mean, they came in, they've got home ice for the entire series. I mean, best regular season record. They've never won a cup. So I kind of always like root for the underdogs, right? Oh, you got a game for ticket. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Hey, Kyle, good to see you. What's up? Yeah, so if you haven't noticed, this is my wife, the one and only Brittany McInnes, who is a PhD in molecular biology and incredibly intelligent. And Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
Yes, I am a real person, not a chatbot.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
See, I told you all I had a good-looking girlfriend, and she's not just made up and living in... You're my girlfriend. You're a girl, and you're my friend.
Okay.
So, yeah. The second face is sus. Kyle, thank you so much. 25 months. Holy moly. That's a long time. And Vern just dropped one for 20 months. You all have been here since the beginning, and I really do appreciate that. That's incredibly generous of you all. What's up, KP? How's it going? Incredibly intelligent. I know you are, but what am I? What's up, Foggage? How's it going? How's it going? Hope everybody's having a good one. The little rat butt emote thing, just it's so clever.
That's
so clever. You can't see as you're audio only, so if I make all the weird faces like I'm doing right now, you'll never know. You'll never know. My girlfriend accuses me of having commitment issues. Well, she's not really my girlfriend, more of a wife. What's up, Nomad? How's it going? Hope everything's going well with you all. Yeah, so, okay, as you might tell, this is a sort of special episode. This is viewer request episode on the plague. Yeah, the plague. It's mean, it's nasty, it's actually pretty easy to kill nowadays. But back in the ancient world, before they had antibiotics, it was a bad thing. You did not want to get the plague. Nobody wants the plague, right? And because this is something that's particularly outside my wheelhouse, I asked my wife if she wanted to throw in some scientific side of stuff. So we've got Dr. Brittany McInnes with us tonight to share some stuff. Bring out your dead! I'm not dead! Oh, shut up. You'll be stone dead in a moment. Ring around the rosy indeed, right? Stop blaming the rats. Yes, the dang fleas. It's the fleas, right? It's the fleas. Now, the fleas do love the rats, but it is the fleas. You caught the bubonic plague books. You're like, oh, rats. Man, the puns are just like... They're hitting it all tonight. All right, so if you were around in like the very early days of viewer request episodes, you'll know that we have actually done this before. When we were talking about leprosy, I brought my wife in to talk about leprosy. So what's going to happen here is I'm just going to sort of turn the floor over, or the screen as it may be, over to my wife and let her talk for a while, and then I'll sort of come in at the end and just do some history stuff. But as always, feel free to ask questions. I can confirm that there is a lot of stuff about this that has been researched to the umpteenth level. So who's Wakala? Wakala one. Like who? This person with all of the rat emotes is just going off. Uh, yep. I did a stream on leprosy. Yep. Those puns are falling apart like a leper on a treadmill. All right. What's up, Tuna? How's it going? Good to see you. She is awesome, and I have many rat emotes. Waka Waka forever. All right, so with no further ado, here we go. So this is all you.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Let's get on this plague.
I'll just sit here and offer color commentary.
Yeah, he never invites me on the stream to talk about rainbows and kittens and stuff.
It's always the infectious disease.
Can I move this over? Where's the images? Is that the images?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just right there.
Okay, there we go. This is our little bug. His name is Yersinia pestis. I guess I did need to enter that into the...
So if you click out here, and then you got to go back over to streaming.
Streaming.
Yep. And then where it says notes right here. Yep, you got to double click that. And then click below that guy. No, that's going to need 2 lines. And click OK.
Sorry, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Well,
I
I
figured-
learned it before, and my brain completely dumped it. All right, Yersinia pestis. So this guy, some fun facts about this guy. He's a gram-negative bacteria. So what that means is that's just like a different kind of staining technique, and it's one of like the popular ways that you classify bacteria is by its gram reactivity. So this guy's gram-negative, which is similar to like E. coli. E. coli is another gram-negative. Also a non-modal, it's called a coccobacillus bacterium. So what that means is, so coccus means sphere, whereas bacillus means rod. So this guy just can't make up his mind, decided to be both. And as you can see in the photo here, it's got all
You
these...
can click on here if you want to, and like they'll be able to see your cursor.
Okay. Yeah, so all these like little gooey tendrils. So this guy makes a biofilm, and that's really important for its virulence, or its ability to cause disease. So it helps it to stick to stuff, especially sticking together, and that's really important for what it does in the flea, which is one of the vectors of the disease, of the disease. And it also helps to kind of avoid the host immune system, because so this guy, so it was actually discovered as a causative agent for the plague in the 1800s by a Swiss physician called Alexander Yersin, which is where we get the name Yersinia pestis. That he discovered that in China when the third plague, or the third plague pandemic was going on, and Shane will talk more about that.
So if you're not losing photos, we should go back over to streaming. Yeah, so click there.
Well, I was just going to move on to the next photo.
So we're just going to show photos while you talk?
I like photos.
Okay, that's fine.
So there are actually 3 main types of plague. The most common type, and also like the most well known, is bubonic plague. So this is when the plague invades lymph nodes primarily, and causes swelling of these lymph nodes, which eventually turn like this blackish color due to cell death and necrosis. But these are called buboes.
Yeah, let's not leave this up forever. This is kind of gross.
Okay, fine, I'll take it off. Capture the image in your mind, and now it is gone. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat at the same time.
You can scroll back up, like if you put it in the chat and then scroll, like with your wheel.
Oh, because I scroll backwards.
Yeah, because you're used to Max. Yes, we are talking about Yersinia pestis. It looks like a Kermit fetus. I was not aware. I don't think either of us have played Astrologaster. I'm not sure exactly what that is, Foggage. Semi-historical game about a real doctor. Cool, cool, cool. Is that like on Steam? It's like a Steam game or something, or PC game or something like that. Trypophobia comes from. Trypophobia is like the fear of like hole things, like the little holes, lots of holes.
I was laughing at Gilded Preachers.
Michael Bubbles. That's a good one.
So Foggage Green had a question: what actually are lymph nodes, and what is lymph? So lymph nodes are part of the lymphatic system, which I'm going to have to dig into my immunology knowledge. Basically,
the lymphatic system is the stuff that makes a lot of the hormones in your body, and it controls a lot of...
Yeah, not necessarily hormones. It does have a function in the immune system, and I can't remember what it is.
Lymph is like a thing that moves stuff around, though. Like the particular function of lymph is basically like to flush stuff out, right?
Kind of. It's kind of its own thing, and I actually think that they're kind of annoying because they always get clogged with stuff. And
yeah, that's like there's
right.
like the lymph nodes are basically just these little glands that spit out secretive stuff that move stuff around, and like they have ducts that suck stuff up and spit stuff out, and it's kind of like part of the way that the body gets rid of crap, right?
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, so my background is in molecular biology. I really don't have too much knowledge about human anatomy and physiology, unfortunately. I should know what the function of the lymphatic system is, though, and I cannot remember. I'm so sorry.
Pretty sure part of it is hormones and part of it is killing crap and getting it dead and gone. It's like a giant vacuole for the body, kind of, sort of.
Right. I'm just going to take your word for it.
Okay.
So yeah, but the lymph nodes. This is where this guy likes to hang out. Well, in the form of bubonic plague. So like I said, there are 3 types, and actually the 3 types are kind of, you get them based on how you get the disease. So bubonic plague, you get it from being bitten by a flea that is infected with the bacteria. So the other 2 types are pneumonic plague. So that's a plague that gets in your lungs, and you get that one, that type from inhaling droplets that an infected person has breathed, and you have then breathed in. Sorry, trying to look at chat. Okay, I thought I had missed something, but all right.
AMR test.
Hello.
Don't smoke, please.
Okay.
This is good advice.
Yes. And then the third type is septicemic plague, and that's where the bacteria gets in your bloodstream. It wasn't really clear how you get that one, other than maybe getting bitten by an animal that is infected with it, or perhaps the other 2 can develop into septicemic. And they all kind of have their own set of symptoms. So like I said, the bubonic form of plague is, this is the one that gets into your lymph nodes. So initially you're going to get symptoms, well, pretty much for all of these, you're going to get things like fever and malaise and headaches and stuff like that.
I thought that was just called going to work. I mean, because that's pretty much describing my symptoms for the last couple of weeks: is fever and malaise and headache. And
so this is what I do when I watch him. Like, he says stuff like that, and I'm just like, it's hard to know what to say.
So,
but yeah, like Sci-Fi said, it describes many illnesses. But so they are different in that. So since the bubonic form starts in the lymph nodes, you get those swollen lymph nodes, like I showed in the picture. But you also start to get like those kind of blackish spots, and that's due from your cells literally dying. And you can also get what's called acral necrosis. So that's where you get this bleeding beneath the skin, especially like in your extremities, like your fingers and your nose. They all start turning like this blackish color, and that's where the name the Black Death comes from. So the pneumonic plague, like I mentioned, is the one that is transmitted through air droplets. So like I said, you're going to get headache and malaise and stuff like that. But of course, you're going to get some lung symptoms. You're going to have difficulty breathing, cough. Most likely, you're going to have some bloody discharge in that cough, as well as chest pain.
Bloody Discharge is the name of my black metal band. I think that's a pretty good one. Where's Eris when you need him, right?
I know.
Eris, that one's for you, buddy, if you're ever watching the VOD. Does your skin come off of your muscles?
I don't think so. I think this mostly... I don't recall...
It's in the subcutaneous level, right? It's like it's still in your skin. It's not on your muscle connective tissue stuff.
From what I've read, so the bubonic part is going to start in your skin because that's where you get bitten. But it does move into the lymph, and from what I've read, that's really just via natural drainage. Like we said, that the lymph is going to circulate everywhere. And I think because it gets in that lymph, and the lymph is everywhere, that's going to facilitate the spread everywhere. But yeah, most of the symptoms are going to manifest in the skin. I would not.
Based on the strain, the mechanisms are oh, come on, we're fine in conversation. We're fine. Lymph nodes act basically as filters against bacteria and viruses. There we go.
Okay. I knew it had some function in the immune system, but I could not remember exactly what it was. Let's see. I think I covered everything with the pneumonic type of plague. So one other thing about the pneumonic type of plague, that one can. So it is the least common, but it's also the most deadly. So that one can kill you within 48 hours of infection. Yeah. Whereas, so the bubonic form, if it's left untreated, you'll die in about a week. Which.
Oh, you've got 7 days. Just click right here where it says allow. Yeah. People who smoke indoors. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you have a few more days to write your memoir.
What's up, Edward?
Before you kick the bucket. And so the last one, the septicemic, I don't know how common that one is, and it might be like I said, it wasn't really clear from my research, which he says that I did extensive research and it was not extensive enough. If I were giving like a talk or something to a graduate committee,
You're not.
Be very embarrassed.
We're not defending a doctoral dissertation.
That's the mode that I went into.
I know. I'm aware. We have done nothing but like you staring at the computer screen for like the last 5 days.
It is all very interesting, and I have really enjoyed like doing all the research for it. But
see, okay, so look right here. You even talk about it. So one of the when she was prepping for all of this stuff, I was asking her questions about stuff, and one of the things that I mentioned was we have historical references of the plague being so bad that people were dying from bleeding out the rear end. And I was like, do people bleed out of their butt? And apparently that's one of the side effects of septicemic plague is where you bleed out of your butt.
I was getting to that.
I'm sorry, but like I saw
all the good
I saw
bits.
bleeding from rectum, and I'm like, that's what I was talking about, right?
Yes.
Spoiler alert: we're going to talk about
Well,
bleeding out of your butthole. Sorry.
in my, I don't know, in my experience, like anything that's septicemia is bad. Like
Yeah, I mean it's
that's
literally
like
in your blood.
That's one of the worst deaths that you can have is death from septicemia. Just FYI.
If I could just not necessarily in your digestive tract, is that your digestive tract is like leaking, like the blood vessels that are in your stomach and intestines are leaking into your excretory system, and you're passing blood because you're hemorrhaging on the inside.
Yeah, that's one of the thing trying to read about because like some of these bugs, especially like the leprosy, the guy that causes leprosy, like they kind of have this telltale pathology like. Um,
Metran's like, I'll try not to die that way.
Okay.
Like that's a good plan, Metran. Dysentery is a digestive bacterial infection. So septicemia is when your blood gets infected. So like you have an infection that is multiplying inside of your circulatory system. So normally, like if you have an infection that's like in your muscles or in your skin or in your sinuses or in your ears, but like this stuff is propagating literally inside your blood, and that's pretty screwed up. Like it's almost impossible to stop that, and you have to do like intravenous antibiotics to try to kill that stuff. It is a wreck. It's really bad.
do not recommend.
Yeah, so dysentery is another bacteriological infection, and it just
Zero
causes
stars.
like, yeah, 0 stars. Would not try again. So dysentery just makes you have unstoppable diarrhea, and that can lead to bleeding out. But you die from stuff like dehydration from dysentery, or
I think with a lot of like dysenteries, especially like the guy that causes cholera.
typhus.
In a lot of those instances, like they're basically secreting like I can't remember what it's called that causes like the laxative effect, like osmolite or anyway, it's something that just
it breaks
causes
down fat. Right?
yeah, like it causes like your the cells in your gut to like just
Mass
water.
evacuate.
Yes.
Yeah, like mass evacuate. If all this is true, then why are vampires so sexy? They sparkle, man. Right? It's the sparkles.
But yeah, like I was saying, your stinging does kind of have like some telltale pathologies, especially. So it has kind of that similar thing with leprosy, where it does kind of attack the cells of the immune system and kind of hides in them, and that's kind of one of the mechanisms where it spreads to the body. But it does also have these virulence factors for attaching to just like epithelial cells, which is everything, like your skin and your gut.
Epithelial
all that's
is like
epithelial cells.
The epithelial cells are basically the things that are linings of stuff, the
And-
inside and outside. You want to answer this?
Oh.
Because nope.
Well, I was just gonna say, finish
we
off
missed a
that.
question.
I was gonna finish off on that thought. So, like, when it sticks to these cells and gets inside them, they also induce a lot of apoptosis, which is cell death. So, like, they're just getting in all your cells and causing them to die. So that's probably what a lot of this, like, bleeding from the butt is coming, is being caused by. Septicemia is when your blood.
Oh, sorry about this right here.
How is that different from like STD or the flu? Aren't those also in your blood? I think. So I think the major difference is that whether they're multiplying in the bloodstream. Because like you're gonna have immune cells that are in your bloodstream that if there are a few bacteria, then they're gonna gobble them up, take care of them. But if the bacteria are just multiplying so much that they're just wrecking your whole system, yeah, that's gonna cause lots of problems. Where so like.
So this is like World War Z zombies versus like slow zombies. If it's a slow zombie, your immune
Right,
system can
right,
beat it. But if it's like
exactly.
World War II rage zombies, they're just going to like start piling up, and you can't stop them because they're going to climb on top of themselves and eat you.
But you might have like a couple of bacteria like just traveling, and if they can
Oh.
get where they're going to be safe, from all of those immune cells.
Right. So like
Yeah.
AIDS or HIV is a bloodborne pathogen, which means that clearly you can get it from coming into contact with that. Like if somebody has HIV positive or something like that, there's some sort of active element, but that has to be introduced into your blood system too, right?
So that's another guy that it invades like a type of cell that's an immune. Let's call it T cell.
Right. And that's in your blood though, right?
T
It's moving
lymphocyte.
around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So I don't know if that answer. Well, so one of the things that I'm kind of used to is listening to my wife talk, and she's incredibly intelligent, and then me like trying to make sense out of that on my own. And I always end up reverting back to like nerd stuff, so like slow zombie versus World War Z zombies. So there we go.
I feel like I gave y'all like a bunch of word diarrhea.
Apoptosis is one of my new favorite words. That's a great word. Apoptosis. That sounds like some ancient Egyptian god. Apoptosis.
All right, let me change to the ugly picture before I go back to the images. So a lot of the, I guess, knowledge or I guess talking points of the plague, this focuses mostly on bubonic plague. So this is.
Let me sneak in here real quick. Sci-fi, yes, it does mutate, and I think Brittany's going to talk about that quite a bit in just a second.
I'm glad you asked that, sci-fi.
Oh, let's just wait.
You will be quite pleased. And I had you in mind because Shane was complaining
I wasn't complaining. I was just saying you have worked really longer on this than I thought you would.
It's very interesting, and I think you will like it, sci-fi. So, bubonic plague, as I mentioned before, the way that a human is going to get it, it most likely is going to be by a flea bite. So, I guess the typical life cycle. Oh,
Right,
sorry.
or you clicked on it? Yeah. Okay. So for them to be able to see your cursor, you have to actually click on it.
I'm still learning.
No, it's good. You're doing well.
So, like the major animal vectors. So, like sci-fi said, the poor rat gets a bad name, but it's also in other rodents, or as we call them here in Mississippi, the varmints. So they've been found in, of course, rats, but also rabbits and squirrels, and like the major animal vector, especially like in Mongolia and in that steppe region, is the marmot. So it's not just specific to rats. It's actually pretty much, from what I could tell, it's kind of non-specific to mammals in general. But
For those of you not familiar, a marmot is basically just like a big groundhog-looking thing.
Right. But I guess these guys are so good at transmitting just because they're so small, and especially rats. They tend to hang around human populations and travel with them. So the way that the flea gets it is by biting a rat, and we'll actually talk more about some of the virulent. I couldn't think of the word. The virulence factors that are really important for Yersinia infection, that are necessary for colonizing the flea gut.
KP's just naming large rodents.
Sure, why not?
Do the fleas transmit it to each other, or does it have to go rat, flea, human?
No, it has to go from a mammal to the flea. So hypothetically, the flea could also get it from an infected human and then go bite a rat, and it could go the other way. So what happens inside the flea is really important. So once Yersinia pestis gets inside the flea's gut, it starts multiplying, and it uses that biofilm, so that big sticky, gooey mess that was kind of surrounding it in the picture I showed you earlier. And that allows it to stick to each other and cause this clump. And what it does is blocks the flea's digestive system. So it makes the flea want to feed more and more because it's hungry. And so once it has that infection and it goes to bite like a human, for instance, as it bites the human, it usually regurgitates some of that old blood along with some bacteria.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah. I can't remember what the next photo is. So I'm not going to talk about every one of these. So these are like just some of the virulence factors, the major ones.
Just as a note,
Yeah.
I have no idea what any of this means at all.
I actually have like a scant idea myself. So I guess the point I want to drive here is like they do need a lot of these virulence factors in order to cause this infection. I feel like I've missed a lot of chat.
You could scroll up.
Let's see.
Domestic rats smell like corn chips.
Oh.
The bottom of puppy feet smell like corn chips too. Could a flea get it from the basis of the chili peppers? So a flea gets it from a flea, but then if a flea bites a flea... Also, I don't think I said hello to Infernal. I saw Infernal come in earlier. How's it going, Infernal? Sorry to miss you. Metrand, hello and welcome. Hope everybody's doing okay.
Yeah, so like I said, the point to drive home here is like there are a lot of these that are important for infection.
What are those, by the way? Could you explain the thing that we're looking at?
Okay, so sorry, all of these in the italic here are the genes, and the ones that are not in italic and they have and they start with a capitalized letter. These are the proteins that are encoded by the genes. So the major ones are these. They're called YOPs, or for Yersinia outer membrane proteins that they actually inject into host cells, and these are really important for causing that apoptosis and cell death, like I said, and also for evading the immune system. So this is one of the. Oops, sorry.
You're good.
So this is like the major way that Yersinia is able to spread so quickly and to kill the host so quickly. Is that it's really, really good at evading the immune system, as well as a lot of these genes are actually turning off the immune response, especially the inflammatory response. So I'll show some photos in the next couple slides, and you'll see these labels. It's like the pro-inflammatory phase.
You're losing everybody right now.
Sorry.
Like everybody is lost.
Sorry. So basically that pro-inflammatory phase is just, this is the point where Yersinia is lowering the immune system, and that's allowing it to spread throughout the body, and that's basically what is happening. Another thing that I wanted to point out here are some these circular pieces of DNA. They're called plasmids, and when I talk more about the evolution of Yersinia pestis in the next couple of slides, these are going to come really important. So this plasmid PMT1 and PPCP1.
Okay.
So all you have to know, they're just circular pieces of DNA.
You still haven't explained what we're looking at.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And you don't have to pay attention to all the stuff, just the things that I pointed out.
Okay.
This is not going to be on the test.
There's not a test.
Yeah, so Foggage, sorry, I did not clarify that these are cells. Sorry, this is supposed to be the Yersinia pestis cell, and this is the host cell. And this is like the only diagram that I could find that had like some of these genes that I wanted to talk about. There's a test. There's not going to be a test. sorry, it's called the pre-inflammatory phase. So this is just a kind of a diagram of what is happening. So this is in the bubonic plague form. So the flea is biting the host and the bacteria. It invades these cells of the immune system called macrophages. So it has all these virulence factors. So normally these macrophages, they gobble up, bacteria and things that aren't supposed to be there. And so Yersinia pestis just turns that off. So it can get inside the cell, but it doesn't get digested like it's supposed to.
So this is like them infiltrating the garbage trucks?
Huh?
So like if a macrophage is the garbage mover in the body that goes in and eats dead stuff and gets rid of it.
Oh, yeah.
So
no,
this
that's
is
a good analogy.
It's like they're hijacking the garbage trucks.
Yeah, but they turn off the little crusher thing that crushes all the garbage.
Okay, yeah. So no garbage is getting crushed.
And that's actually a really good analogy because they are actually using these macrophages as a vehicle to get into the lymph nodes.
They have stolen it. The union's going to be very upset about that.
Yeah. They get a free ride. So once they get to the lymph nodes, they're kind of free to just multiply, and of course as they multiply, those lymph nodes are going to swell, and they kind of have the system-wide mechanism for invading, and they pretty much do the same thing in the pneumonic type.
Okay, so the macrophages are driving the plague is driving the dump trucks or the garbage trucks to the middle of the intersection, and they're just stopping them, and they're shutting down the intersections.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Okay, cool. I
should have ran this by you before the stream. Yeah, I should have just taught all this to you, and you could have done this.
I have the ability to turn this into basic metaphor. That's my superpower. I can metaphor things. Also, hey David, good to see you.
Hello, David. Okay. Yeah. Once again, there's just a lot of stuff on this slide, and I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't just crop this. But just the only thing to pay attention. So this is Yersinia pestis. It has its own genome, so it's its main chromosome. But it also has these extra pieces of DNA. So when we talk about the evolution of Yersinia pestis, so it evolved, it diverged from another Yersinia. It's called Yersinia pseudotuberculosis, which is another pathogen, but it's not quite as pathogenic as pestis is.
Guessing it causes tuberculosis.
I'm actually not sure.
But that would make sense if one version of this is basically aerosol and gets in your lungs, because tuberculosis is lung-based too, right?
You're asking me questions I don't know the answer to.
Okay, well.
But yes, they have a common ancestry. So most of the chromosome, actually Yersinia pestis lost several regions of the chromosome. And this PCD1 plasmid is also present in that Yersinia pseudotuberculosis. But the new pieces of DNA are on these plasmids, this PMT. It's supposed to be one there, PMT1 and PCP1. So all I want you to pay attention to is these two plasmids, because they carry these extra virulence factors, especially this PLA1. So this encodes a protease that's really necessary for tissue invasion. So like I said before, this guy's just really good at just invading the host system, and it's mostly because of this gene. And we'll see, so there's some other genes that come into play here. They're not listed, but one of them is on that PMT plasmid that are needed for survival in the flea host.
Okay, go back.
Oh.
Okay, so what's a plasmid and what's a protease?
Oh, okay, sorry. I forget that I.
You're not talking to people with PhDs.
I know. I'm so sorry. So plasmid is just this extra piece of circular DNA. Um, so the chromosome is the DNA that the bacteria needs to live. This it can lose, and it doesn't really necessarily need it, except for if it wants to infect a host because it's got some important genes on it. So like this is just some extra like bonus DNA. And a protease is just an enzyme that breaks down proteins. And from what I've read about this guy, it's pretty general function, but it does seem to be important for invading tissue.
So how does it replicate a plasmid? Like if I've got one little Yersinia pestis here, and it wants to make another Yersinia pestis, right? It goes through mitosis and it splits its DNA in half. How does it make another copy of a plasmid?
So it has the same, pretty much the same replication toolkit that the chromosome would.
So like the plasmid itself contains DNA within it to copy itself?
Yep.
Oh wow, that's crazy. These don't have a nucleus?
No. So that's one characteristic about. So there's a group of organisms. Oh crap! Why can't I think of the word?
Eukaryotes?
Prokaryotes. Okay. So there's eukaryotes, which is like our cells.
Right, they have nucleus.
So
And prokaryotes.
yes, they have a nucleus where their chromosome is contained like in this sac thing that's called the nucleus. So prokaryotes, like bacteria, do not have a nucleus. So their chromosome is just floating, free floating in the cell.
And I'm free. So does the plasmid copy itself while it's sitting inside its own cell? That's what it sounds like, Foggage. So when it's time to just copy a cell, all of the plasmids and the main chromosome just decide to split.
Yep.
And they move to their polar ends, and then it just like splits the cell membrane and makes.
It's
two
more
new-
complicated than that, but, but
Okay,
basically,
let's just say generally yes.
that would be like a whole other 2 hour long discussion.
Yeah, let's not go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I need to get moving on so that we're not here for 2 hours. So this is the stuff that I'm really excited about, and I spent a little bit too much time reading about, but I think that sci-fi will like it because of the background in archaeology. So these are some papers that came out like within the last couple of years, and so when I first agreed to do this stream, I was just like, I know Yersinia pestis. We learned about that in pathogenic microbiology. I don't have to really do that much prep. And then I found out about these studies, and I was like, ancient DNA, detection of ancient Yersinia pestis DNA. Yes, I have to cover this. So just the snapshots, because there are lots and lots of kind of DNA analysis papers out there. Several skeletons have been found, mostly like in this, I guess, Eastern European, Eurasian area. And most of them are coming from late Neolithic, late Neolithic and early Bronze Age skeletons. So looking for Yersinia pestis DNA in some of these. So this is another skull. This one came from Latvia. So this is the oldest one. So this paper came out last year. So this is about 5,300 years old. So basically what...
You have questions about this?
Oh, yep. Where did they find it? Oh, sorry. So I think in all of the papers I read, they extracted the DNA from the teeth.
And so what they're looking at is, like, when you get the plague, it gets, like, in your body, and when you die, it's still all in your body. So when they grind up your teeth and they do that sort of broad spectrum DNA analysis,
I
you
think
get little bits of pestis that show up.
I think the thing with the teeth is just since they're encased in enamel, is that the teeth, the DNA in the teeth just doesn't degrade as fast. But yeah, it's going to have a mix of human and any bacteria that was in the tooth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what this whole process is showing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
ahead of the game.
So they take it from. I guess they could take it from the bones, but like I said, I think most of the papers that I read took it from the teeth.
So if they're doing this the same way that they would normally do paleoarchaeology when it comes to doing DNA stuff, is they go for big bones and they'll do stuff that are like really deeply encapsulated, so like your teeth, or they'll do stuff like the ball of your hip, like of your femur where it joins into your hip socket. They'll go into that, or sometimes in the ball of your shoulder. So something that was really, really dense, that had a lot of stuff around it, because the DNA on the outside of the bone, of course, is going to be contaminated and degrade pretty quickly because it's exposed more to the process of rotting and being buried and all that stuff. So you want something that is in a really, really dense bone that is sort of very well protected, which is why teeth is such a big deal. Paleontologists prefer big bone folks. Yeah, actually, it's a lot easier to get I get stuff that's out of really big, dense bones. So they've used skull. Yeah, so the DNA has to be present. So basically, they would grind. Well, I'll let Brittany describe this because she knows how to do it a lot better than I do. She's actually done this kind of stuff before.
Oh, not paleo.
Not the paleo stuff,
No,
but like
no. Like I have done some of the bench work, like especially with cloning. So cloning in this case, it doesn't mean.
Start at the beginning again. So you get some bones.
Yes.
And you got to grind them down.
Uh-huh.
And then when you grind them down, it's going to spit out all the little DNA parts. That's what I'm seeing here.
Well, yeah, you have to extract the DNA.
Okay.
Now we get to cloning.
How do you do it? How do you extract the DNA? Is that where they add like the liquid stuff that sticks to the DNA and it sorts it to one side, or?
That is another complicated stream that would take maybe not 2 hours, but at least an hour. There are special solutions that each have like a specific purpose.
Yeah, like a PCR
for
test.
purifying DNA.
It's the same thing that they've been doing with like COVID stuff, right? When you catch COVID, they run your DNA through that, and they can sort out your DNA pieces. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now it is a lot easier to extract DNA nowadays because like everything's in a kit. Used to you had to make your own solutions, but like a lot of the stuff is just like there's just a kit for everything.
Did you see this?
Yes, I saw that.
Okay, a friend of mine was doing a QC for Meat Packer and had to estimate how long it would take to chill pig carcasses. Oh, that's fun. Assume a circular pig. Okay, cool. When you catch COVID, they grind down your... No. They can get DNA from like your spit. That's why they swab stuff like in your throat or up your nose. And they can get your DNA that way.
Yes, because you're a living person, they just need to take your spit. That's fine. But if you've been dead for 1,000 years, they're gonna have to drill into your bones.
Hey, Schnigel, what's up? Faintly terrifying, much appreciated. That's kind of what we do here, right? Okay, go to your cloning part now.
I just wanted to point this out because I don't know. I nerd out about this stuff, and I just think that it's so amazing. So you have this old DNA, which is like so special, and you don't want to throw it away or mess it up. So one of the things that they do, and this is just like for sequencing anything, is they clone it into this. So cloning just means just taking a piece of DNA from somewhere else and then putting it in, usually into a plasmid. So like I said before, a plasmid is just a circular piece of DNA.
But these are plasmids that they make in the lab, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can take so basically you take this DNA and you cut it into little pieces and you insert it into these circular pieces of DNA, these plasmids. So what that does is, number one, you can put this plasmid like in E. coli or some other lab strain and just keep it in the freezer, and you'll have this DNA forever. And if you want to amplify this DNA, you just let the lab strain of E. coli grow, and you'll just have more and more copies of it. And even more is so since these plasmids have a known sequence, you can use PCR, polymerase chain reaction, which is used to amplify DNA. So it just creates more and more copies of DNA. That makes sequencing just so much easier when you have so much more material. And so this is called a library whenever you put this unknown DNA and do this process. So libraries, they last forever as long as your freezer is lasting, and you can share these with other labs, and it's just really cool.
All right, let me catch up. Got a question up here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right. Would bog bodies preserve DNA? Yes. Anaerobic atmosphere situations are great for preserving DNA because there's actually not any rotting that happens in a lot of those situations. Otherwise, it's sort of the typical thing that works better when it comes to preserving archaeological stuff. You don't want a lot of wet stuff that's mushy. So your rainforests are horrible for preserving bodies of DNA. Some of the best stuff that we've gotten are, especially when we're trying to do really, really old DNA stuff, some of the best things that we have are from the floors of caves that are really, really deep. We're talking something like, half a mile into this cave where it's a very static atmosphere that has a generally relative stable humidity that doesn't have a lot of air movement, so it's basically just going to fall to the floor and then get buried under dirt. So those are quite good. And a lot of the earliest pieces of evidence that we have for DNA from early hominids, things like Floresiensis, the little hobbit people, and stuff like I'm missing my words here. Neanderthals and the Denisovans. We have very few references for those, but almost all of the ones that we had that we've been able to extract DNA out of have come out of the floors of caves that have been basically like kind of compacted down. So it depends on how cold it is. Freezing can preserve it if it's not like freezer burned, but you can freezer burn DNA just like you can freezer burn anything. It's like a frozen body in the north. It really depends on how much of the body is wrapped up. Like Etsy, the Iceman, they've done DNA analysis on him, but a lot of that was because he had on really, really thick cold weather clothes and was wrapped up pretty well. Do you think it would be feasible to create a GitHub for DNA? Probably, but you start getting into ethical worlds right there that are really sketchy. Because then, like, what happens if somebody wants to put my DNA up there? All right, I'll turn it back over to Brittany.
FYI, for anyone who's interested, all of these sequences that are published in these papers that I'm talking about are available online. You can go to GenBank and you can get, which is like another one of these things that I nerd out about. So a lot of these sequencing libraries.
We can post links to that in the Discord after the stream.
Yes, I could definitely. Lots of links, lots of PDFs.
I don't think we need to clone Mammoth Slumpy. I think there's a reason they died out. It would be neat to see, but it would turn into a money thing, and also we have to worry about the ecological implications of that and the ethical implications of that, because then we end up getting into cloning other things like humans. All right.
Yeah, okay, so they get this ancient DNA and they get it in this form so that they can have it forever. They can, magnify it so they have lots of sequences, and then they take it on to sequencing, which sequencing has come a long way, especially in the last couple of years. So there's a type of sequencing called next generation sequencing. Used to, it would take you like months to sequence a bacterial genome. Now you can do it in like a day. So that's just amazing to me. Tangent, what did it mean to sequence a genome? Okay, so if you are not familiar, so DNA, that is just the it's called the blueprint of the cell. So it tells the cell how to make everything: proteins, RNAs. And it's all encoded in this sequence of nucleotides. So there are 4 nucleotides. There's cytosine, guanine, adenine, and
Thymine.
yeah, thymine. For some reason, I always want to say tyrosine, which is an amino acid.
I do that too.
So this is the data that you're going to get from that sequencing. So you're going to get, so whenever you kind of break apart that DNA, because you want to break it into like smaller fragments, because it's just a lot easier to sequence that way. But you're going to get like these overlapping regions, and that's going to. So once you can find where those regions overlap, so this is called a contig, where you have these fragments of DNA that all kind of overlap, kind of usually at like different regions. And the more of this overlap you have, the more confidence you have in that sequence being the right sequence.
So basically what we're looking at here is when we've ground up a whole bunch of pestis DNA, we see where a lot of things end up overlapping, and because of this we can find the beginning and the end of the DNA sequence, because when we grind up the bone or the tooth, we're not going to get a full strand of pestis DNA, we're going to get a whole bunch of fragments. And when we have to do stuff like this, we're looking at the places where they overlap so that we know where one fragment starts and when another fragment ends, and we can tell because of the particular coatings when the strand is done and when it starts. So that way we know that we've got the whole strand of pestis.
And also, they have like I guess modern Yersinia pestis strains, because there are several Yersinia pestis strains genomes that have been sequenced. So you can use those as reference to see like, okay, we're missing some in this region, stuff like that. Looking at the chat to make sure.
Yeah, so and another thing that happens with ancient DNA is that parts of it will degrade. And so, you know, if your strand of DNA is something like 50,000 base pairs, right? And you get a strand that's like, you know, 10,000 base pairs, or you might get one that's like 20 base pairs. And so to create an ancient genome, when you're doing this particular sequencing thing, you're not going to get like one piece of DNA that has all 50,000 base pairs. You're going to end up with like parts of it here, parts of it there, parts of it over here, and then somebody's got to sit down in the lab and piece it all back together to create the full thing. This is why it took so long to try to do this stuff back in the day. Now we have computer models that can do it
back
fast.
in the day, like you had to sequence one strand at a time. That's why it took so long. It was super expensive, but yeah, nowadays it's much faster and cheaper. Okay, so all of that is to build up to this big chart. So so this is looking at several of those skeletons from the Bronze Age, as well as, so all of these are, I think, pretty much still in circulation. The Bronze Age ones are technically extinct, but that doesn't mean that these other ones aren't derived from related bugs. But like the cool thing about this is that you can go back in history and you can kind of map how this bug became so vicious. So like I mentioned before, it evolved from Yersinia pseudotuberculosis, and it lost some genes in the chromosome. So that's by just by comparing its genome to just any Yersinia pestis genome. So Yersinia pestis also gained those 2 plasmids, like I said before. Yes, so those dates are, so they use like this weird kind of dating system.
Era.
Yeah, it's like, I guess, it's however many years ago.
It's years ago. Years ago sucks. I hate years ago.
Yeah, it is very confusing. So I think
5717 years ago is 3,000. Yeah, it's 3,700 BC. So that would be like 3,700 BC is before we lived in cities. So yeah, that'd be that's not the late Bronze Age though. That's the they've got their titles wrong here, but that's me arguing with somebody that's
Yeah, I don't know
probably
the cutoff.
in science.
Points.
Late Bronze Age is like somewhere around like 1500 to about 1100. So, but that's me. 15 before COVID. Yeah, I agree.
So the thing that I found fascinating about this, so looking at these early Bronze Age, I'm sorry, what?
You've got to watch the chat. Like,
Okay.
you missed a question right here.
Sorry. What's the minimum read length to be confident that you can sequence it? I cannot remember. So read length, I'll go back to. So that's just like the length of your sequence. So like one of these sequences. And yeah, generally the longer the sequence is, the better. And you also have this thing called coverage, which, so like that's what these numbers are, or sorry, coverage depth, which is like how much overlap you have per nucleotide. And you also want that number to be as high as possible. Did I miss anything else? Okay. Okay. So like I said, like this is like just the cool part that I just found so fascinating. All of these ancient skeletons were missing a lot of the genes and gene changes that were necessary to infect the flea. So basically, all of these old, one of them, this YMT, that protects the bacteria from blood digestion byproducts by the flea, and all these other genes. Basically, they have to be non-functional in order for the flea to survive, especially this one right here, this URD, because it creates this toxin that kills the flea. So basically, about 4,000 years ago, all the Yersinia pestis, so people were getting infected by Yersinia pestis, but it wasn't through that flea transmission. And a lot of the authors suggested that, so these guys were hunter-gatherers. Most likely they were catching Yersinia pestis by like handling animals that are infected with it, or maybe even being bitten by it. About 4,000 years ago, they were able to infect fleas, and that just gave them this kind of huge advantage, because now they have this extra organism that they can colonize and use to spread around.
I think you're out of pictures.
Yeah, I think that is all that I wanted to talk about.
You got to go back and look through your notes too, because you didn't get through all of your notes.
I told you, I always like take way too many notes.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, that took a lot longer than I thought it would.
Did it?
I was trying to talk really fast.
Did it?
Yeah. I just think it's really cool.
I knew that would take a lot longer. Okay. So yeah, people have started doing years. It's the way that they classify it is years before present, and I hate it. I hate it because years before present, like when, right? If I write a paper this year and I say it was 5 years before present, next year my paper is out of order. Like, do I go back and update my paper? No, it's stupid. I hate it. We should not use that. Years before present sucks. Stand against years before present.
I also wanted to point out I didn't show in the photo. So I was telling Shane, I assumed that like there would be like some sort of mutation that would cause it to be like way more virulent, to cause like the Justinian plague or something like that. But there really isn't anything. I mean, there are still some mutations, but it really doesn't seem to affect their virulence. So you were right, that it was just from people being so dense and dense populations.
We've had multiple conversations about this as we go. Okay, so a few things.
So I said it on chat.
That I was right.
Right.
I know. We can mark it. We had the VOD, right?
Well, you get this one.
I get one victory. She's so much smarter than I am. So much smarter than I am.
I think this stuff is really cool.
Can these strains be preserved from long ago and actually somehow start affecting people again? Oh yeah, there are people that get like plague today. Like you can get plague this afternoon if you go walk around in Arizona.
So the Bronze Age strains most likely are extinct, or at least from based on the comparing it with existing strains. Just because like they're just not, they kind of form their own little branch, which we don't have any of that those types of plague anymore.
Do we know anything about vaccine-derived polio? I know nothing about this. Do you know anything about this?
I have not. I haven't read anything about it.
Fogish, if you've got something to link, I'll just be really honest with everybody. The last 2 weeks have been like ridiculously busy at work, and I have read very, very little of the news. So if there's something big happening, I quite possibly have missed it. But Foggage, if you got something to link, and KP, if you're still around, could you reimburse Foggage for that one, if you could, please? No, I haven't even been talking about Turkey.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. I've heard about the hepatitis.
Well, we can look at it.
Hepatitis.
Yeah, I heard about kids' hepatitis stuff, but like I haven't heard about vaccine-derived polio. I don't actually know what vaccine-derived polio is, so this is going to be like, let's read this on stream. Is polio making a comeback? Rates plunge from estimated 35,000 cases, several dozen, recent years. Go. Vaccine. Ah, yeah. So there's the kicker right there. I think that's the trigger, right? If you're there are several different ways to do vaccines, and if you're doing the weakened virus version, you're actually introducing that into somebody's body, right? And even if it's a weakened version of it, if that person has a weak immune system, it's quite possible that they could develop it. And especially considering the parts of the places that we're talking about, places like most likely India, Southeastern Asia, places where people have a whole bunch of issues with nutrition, stuff like public sanitation, things like that. This is going to have a pretty big impact on people. 25 countries reporting cases last year. Public health officials have sounded alarm. What 25 countries? What 25 countries? It's not telling me countries. 14 countries, primarily in Africa. Okay, so that tells me something. But what part of Africa? Regional Office for Africa. Yeah, okay, where's it at? Oh, Tajikistan. Yeah, Tajikistan's pretty poor. Like average life expectancy in Tajikistan is ridiculously lower than it is in most places. They have a pretty decent sized oil industry, but the government pretty much runs their country, and the average person there is very, very poor. I wish. So Kampala is a. Oh crap! This is in Uganda, I believe. Is Kampala in Uganda? Pretty sure it's in. I'm pretty sure Kampala is the capital of Uganda. West African country of Gambia. Yes, so Gambia, Western Africa itself is pretty poor. So basically what I'm getting from this is effectively, and this is again a very, very brief take, this young lady's in Pakistan. Basically what I can tell from this, according to a quick once over with very little preface and background, is it looks like the oral vaccine that they were using is kind of like lab-grown polio that's very, very weak. And the idea is we'll introduce this weakened version of the virus to the body. The body will be able to fight it off and create antibodies that will then be able to prevent people from getting sick. However, the places that they're introducing this are with people that are particularly malnourished and have bad access to healthcare facilities in the first place. So even if you introduce a weakened virus into a weakened body, it can still do damage. And I have a feeling that my initial gut reaction is that's what's happening. And so they are changing the way that they do the oral vaccine away from living virus to something roughly akin to the kind of dead virus approach, where instead of using a live virus, they kind of grow the active site of the virus in a big batch, and then you drink a whole bunch of this dead virus stuff, and your body learns how to build the antibodies that way. So that's my take on that. But this is, again, very, very, very brief. Does she have an adventure hat? What's up, Noger? I don't actually know where the adventure hat is. It's probably up front. You want to wear the opinion hat?
I don't want any hat.
You don't want a hat?
No. That's your thing.
I love how present in carbon-14 dating is in the 1950s. Feels very present. Yes, yes, yes. Proteins are present. And then they poo it out and it mutates. Yeah, well, what was that quote again about the future being here but not evenly distributed? Correct, yes. Smolio involved in a polio. Dead Virus is my new metal band. Yeah. The adventure hat is out adventuring. Speaking of plagues, do you think we've seen the deadliest variant of C19 yet?
I don't know. I would think to predict that, I would need to be an epidemiologist, which I am not.
You can just say you don't know. It's okay.
I mean, we don't know if we haven't seen the deadliest form of the flu yet. I mean, only time will tell. Like everything, viruses are just terrible about mutating.
All right, so let's do some history stuff, and I can be brief because I can actually be brief.
He'll actually say words that you'll understand.
All right, so here's the thing. When we talk about history and we say, where did the plague show up historically speaking? Well, we just learned from Brittany that we know that in like the 3700s, way back in the day, 3700s BC, we have like factual, historical, archaeological evidence, but when do we know what this is, right? When do we first see references to something that is the plague? Well, the thing is, like, ancient people don't understand biology the way that we do. So there are like tons of plagues referenced in the ancient world, and we see these going all the way back to the Bronze Age, where plague came through and killed lots of people and did all this stuff, but we don't always know what that is. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. People call things plague, and it could be like typhus, or it could be smallpox. Plague gets blamed for basically anything that's like hemorrhagic. You know, if you're going to bleed out some way, or you're going to have bleeding, like, you know, we mentioned earlier, bleeding out the rear end, they're probably going to call that plague. So it was really sort of a catch-all term, and we really didn't know anything specifically or different about the stuff until we get to about the 500s of the current era. So the puppy is actually in the room with us. She's been walking around all stream begging for attention, and I have been appeasing her as much as possible while Brittany spoke. But she's literally like right here. Do you want to get up here? You want to get up here? Come on. Come on.
She's so concerned that both humans are speaking to the right box instead of one.
Yeah, both humans have gone crazy.
Come here.
You have ghosts in your blood to do coke about it. What? Yes, so there's the puppy. Okay, so when do we know that plague hit, and when do we actually have the first reference to it? Well, that's mostly what we call the Justinianic plague, and this is a plague that starts in the year 541, and it's actually going to run for about 215, 220 years. Whoop, that's the wrong two. So the Justinianic plague is pretty nasty, and this is the first one that we have archaeological proof was actually Yersinia pestis. So here's the thing about the way that plague outbreaks start. It's really hard to tell when they start, and it's really hard to tell where they start, especially in the ancient world when we don't have epidemiology as a developed science, and nobody's really keeping good notes on this stuff. So there's a lot of questions about where actually the plague of Justinian started, and there's been a whole bunch of very biased research to try to point at groups of people. Everybody wants to blame Asian folks. Everybody wants to blame China. This all started over there. We don't really know where the Justinianic plague originated. We do know that the first reference that we have of it is sort of in the Red Sea coastal region. Yeah, it's always those other guys. So specifically, we have record of it popping up down here. What's up, Meg? What are you sniffing? Yes, I see the little puppy head. Can we change a .org petition to rename the COVID to the Trumpianic plague? I don't think you could do whatever you want to, but I don't think it'll catch on. Okay, so down here in this region, this is ancient kingdom of Aksum, which is in modern day Ethiopia. And there are some other people over here in the Arabian Peninsula that are called Himyarites, and we've talked about them sort of tangentially earlier in stream. But we know that it came from somewhere down here. This is the first reference that we have to this. Now, why is this area particularly important? And if you've been hanging around with us, you'll know that over the course of the 4th century to about the 6th century, trade in the Indian Ocean is beginning to kick up. Specifically, trade coming out of China and trade coming out of India, going over here and trading with all of these people, right? We have references to Buddhism in Christian sources here in Egypt. We have lots of trade that's coming up here into this Red Sea, and these two kingdoms right here, the Himyarite kingdom and the Aksumite kingdom, are going to be trade-based, and they don't really like each other, and they fight a lot. What isn't that the whole problem with the plague? It did catch on? Pretty much. Pretty much. So we know that it starts coming out of here, and it gets up the Nile into Egypt, right? So boats plus rats plus fleas equals how to spread the plague. Essentially, yes. So the question is, there are some people that say, okay, well, this started pretty clearly in China, right? It always starts in China. We can't say that. For example, one of the biggest pieces of evidence that we have that this didn't really come out of China to begin with is we have no record of this in Southeast Asia. And around this time, we have records of people doing stuff in Southeast Asia. Also, we don't have lots of records of this hitting in India. So for the plague to have traveled from China, it would have had to stop off here and trade networks that way, and it would have had to stop off on one of the two sides of India before it got over here into Arabia. Now, what's much more likely is that during this period of time, we talked about Persia being much more active in Central Asian trade, specifically with people like originally the Huns, the Hephthalites, the Kittites, and then we also talked about the Go-Turks, who were very close trade partners. There's some pretty decent evidence that it could have actually come from kind of this Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan region, and then come down the coastline here and moved over this way, because it does show up pretty heavily in Persia. And because a lot of the sources that we have at this time period are Roman talking about Persia, we don't know exactly where it started in Persia. We just know that Persia got eaten up with it. So there we go. We know that it came through here, and then it came up into the Levant and Syria, and then it got into the Mediterranean trade networks, and it got into the Central and Eastern Eurasia trade networks. And basically, by the end of the Justinianic plague, we're going to have references that we found architecturally with DNA evidence from the plague of Justinian reaching all the way from Ireland, all the way over here to what is modern-day Afghanistan, and basically everything in between. Now, here's the thing about these pandemics. It starts very slow, and it moves sometimes very rapidly, but it doesn't just stop, right? It shows up in little pockets, and it will pop up and it'll flare up for 10 or 15 years, and it'll kind of die off again, and then it'll pop up a little bit again down the road. And the particular plague strains that showed up in Justinian, they don't really die out until the 760s. So this thing starts in 541 and it runs all the way through the 760s, where there are pockets of this stuff that will flare up and cause a whole bunch of deaths and then die off. And because this is so far back in time, we don't really have the world's best numbers about this. We have some pretty dramatic records from a guy named Procopius, who was a historian that lived through this particular period of time during the Emperor Justinian's reign. The Emperor Justinian actually got the plague and survived it. But Procopius says that it got so bad in Constantinople that 10,000 people were dying a day. Now, that's probably hyperbolic, but the descriptions go on to say stuff like they were stacking bodies outside of the walls, and the piles of bodies got to like half as tall as the Theodosian walls, which are like 30 feet tall. So like a 15-foot tall stack of bodies outside the gate. And they couldn't keep up with doing burials, and they couldn't even keep up with burning them. So it was pretty bad. And if you thought like some of the pandemic stuff that we've lived through was bad, and it has been bad, like I mean, ancient people have stuff way worse than we do. And some of the sort of best guess estimates is that over the course of this period of time, this plague might have killed up to a quarter of the population of the late antique world. So we're talking about Northern Africa, Europe, and the Middle East here. Perhaps 25% of the total population. It's estimated that it killed about 40% of Constantinople's population. And at that time, Constantinople was a city of probably 3 to 4 million people, which that's a whole bunch of folk.
That's a bunch of folk.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty gross stuff.
Dead folk.
If you want to read this stuff, you can go look up Procopius. And you can actually read his stuff is completely translated online for free. So that was like the first big pandemic, but we all know what the more famous one is, of course, and this is the Black Death. Yep, good old Black Death. This one started in 1347, and we have a much better idea of where this came from because we have a regional recognition. And we have a regional recognition because of better archaeology, also higher populations. Let's not forget, right? If we look back at the 540s in the ancient world, the whole population of the Earth was probably like maybe 200, 300 million people, right? It's not nearly as big as the population is today. If you fast forward to like 800 years later, there's going to be a whole lot more people, and that means a whole lot more bodies, and that means mass graves, and unfortunately for those people, that means we can dig them up and find, all the little pestis bugs that Brittany talked about. So specifically here, we know that this is going to start somewhere in Central Asia, and we know that because the first people that are reported to kind of see this stuff are the Mongolians. And in the late 1200s and early 1300s, you'll know that, well, maybe you not know, but this is when the big Mongolian hordes were sort of expanding, and this is like Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan and people like that. And we know that they had plague because at various points of time, they would use their catapults to launch plague-infected bodies into cities they were sieging and literally do like ancient genetic warfare. Did you run into that stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. So you thought the orc shooting heads into Gondor was pretty gross. At least, the dude that you fought with didn't have the plague, right? Yeah, it's biowarfare. Shredded pestis bugs. Those statistics puzzle back together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like do the math science thing, right? Anyway, due to really advanced, really good stuff in the science field, we know that it probably is going to start right around this region right here. Sort of this northern Caspian Sea coastline. All right, Matt, thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a good one.
Bye.
You would hate to have a load of plague bodies into the catapult. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Also, hey, Bubba. I didn't say hey. Good to see you. And hey, Nogra. I don't know if I said hello as well. So, really gross, really, really horrible stuff. But with that, of course, is going to come spread over all of this other stuff, right? It saved us from a Martian invasion in the 1900s. Oh, my goodness gracious. Alas. But this is the good old-fashioned Black Death. And if we look at how this spread, we actually have a pretty good concept of where this came from. And it's going to start over here in Asia Minor. and there are going to be a couple of places where this is going to be sort of epicentered. Mostly, and this is going to sound pretty bad for the Venetians, it's places where Venice was in charge. Venice and Genoa, the two big trading cities in Italy at this time, are going to control most of these islands and or some of these islands here, and they're going to have naval bases and trade bases around this way. And as you can tell, this is going to be the vector by which it spreads into the larger part of Europe. Now, you might be wondering, what's up with this? Why are there only mild outbreaks up here? Well, again, there's not a lot of people up here, right? There just is not a lot of people in this region. And we, again, and I've mentioned this a few times, and I mentioned this when we were doing the history of the Ukraine stream. Eastern Europe and Central Europe right here have not had high populations in the ancient world. This is really a modern invention where we have industrial capacity for people to live in a lot of these areas, right? Old MacDonald had a plague. Exactly, Meg. I don't think I said hello to Meg either. What's up, Meg? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. But we can see here this moving, right? So it's moving, and it's moving all across the area. This plague does spread significantly further than the last one. What's about the minor outbreak around Milan? Wasn't that a major city? Well, that's a great question, Kyle. The answer there is the invention of quarantine. Quarantine was made up by the Italians during this period of time. And basically, they invented the whole idea of you don't get to come here if you are sick. And if you wanted to trade with an Italian city-state at that point, you would basically pull your boat up to the harbor and declare your intent, and then you would not be able to get off the boat. You would have to go sit offshore for a couple of weeks sometimes before they would allow you on shore to trade. And Milan being an intercity, they would pretty much basically not go out, right? This is the old-fashioned, we're going to stay in our walls. We're not going to go out of the city. You don't get to come in our city. We're going to make you stay outside in the distance and keep you away. Yeah, like the fall of the House of Usher, pretty much, right?
Piper said I should slap you across the head.
For what? The Alanis Morissette reference?
I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was pretty good. We came up with that mutually. We both
No, you came up with it, and I was like, yeah, that's good. It was also the only one we could come up with.
Well, I had others. I was going to put Plague Against the Machine, but that just didn't go very well.
Yeah, you didn't give me that one.
This one's way better, though. Like, you always have, like, a dinky and junky backup plan.
You pre-filtered it before you...
Well, I mean, it was not as good. I have not heard of World of Warcraft Corrupted Blood Incident. It's like, play it on your wedding day. Very nice. I appreciate that. This because this is special promotion. You could be happy in a relationship with someone who's always bringing up the past. Oh, well played. I see what you did there. I see what you did. Being married to me is harder than I think that it is, and I think it's pretty difficult because I'm a butthole. But anyway,
I only listened to like
half of the stuff.
10% of what
10%. Okay,
yeah.
well that makes sense. So the Black Death starts in 1347, and that particular strain continues to cause outbreaks across the world all the way up until the 1820s, 1829.
I did have something to add here. So when I was reading, so kind of interjecting some biology
hit me.
into it, I also was not aware of like how widespread it was in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad, especially like in
Palestine.
Baghdad.
Because so like that region, there's a gene called I guess it's a protein, or it's like now I've lost my words.
Oh no.
Sorry, a syndrome called familial Mediterranean fever.
Oh yeah.
And so it's genetic disorder through a mutation in this gene so the gene is called pyrin.
You want to start at the beginning and say this in a concerted direction?
This is how my words come out. They just like kind of tumble like just a big mess of word soup. Anyway, so this mutation called pyrin, and it causes like this autoimmune disease, and apparently it's like one of the targets of Yersinia pestis. So people that have this mutation, so it does cause some problems, but it gives them resistance to bubonic plague. And the interesting thing is, so most of the people in Europe that were of Middle Eastern descent were Jewish people. So a lot of Jewish people got blamed for the plague because they weren't dying. It gets quite a high frequency as the other Europeans.
We'd have to.
And that is just really interesting.
I'd be interested. I'm sure that you have all of that stuff. Yeah, kind of like malaria and sickle cell anemia.
Right, exactly.
So it's detrimental in one way, but it's beneficial in another way.
So it's just like one of those interesting ways where like biology and genetics kind of intersected with history.
Epidemius studied it for how plagues would spread. What is it? Oh, in World of Warcraft. Okay. So there's something on Warcraft that happened, and then people looked at it to see how it would spread. Is this something to do with like internet connectivity and globalization? Vampires of Venice invented quarantine to hide their breeding operation. What's up, Uncle Bill? It's a Doctor Who reference. See, I haven't seen that episode. Have you seen that episode? The Vampires of Venice episode?
Maybe. I watched a lot of that while I was doing computer science school. So I think I missed a lot of it.
Color respects your mouse guard shirt.
Yes.
Cultural standards of sanitation. Hey, Mac, what's up? Yeah, that actually probably would, because so what Mac is referencing here specifically is that Jewish people and Middle Eastern people, so that includes particularly people that are of Jewish faith and Muslim faith, have a lot of dietary restrictions and a lot of cleanliness restrictions. Specifically, Jewish people have more like washing and bathing and stuff. But this goes into like, your kosher and halal preparation of food and keeping things separate and particular types of food. So if you are a group of people that sort of has a natural cleanliness thing that is abnormal, like even Christian people at that time weren't really doing big cleanliness stuff. Like you get your sprinkle, your young
throw your poop out the window.
Yeah, right. But
yeah.
that's not cool for Jewish communities because they have cleanliness standards, and that is also going to play into the larger lack of rodent stuff and lack of flea stuff, right? So thanks for bringing that up, Mac. I appreciate that. While corrupted blood was a transmissible spell effect, it was supposed to stay inside the boss area, but programmers forgot about it in game pets, and it spread. They tried to quarantine it, and it didn't work. Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Zul'Gurub. That sounds like an Assyrian leader. Or hurt, depending on the perspective. Yeah. That's true, too. Some of the pet in major cities and spread the plague. Wow, that's great. I throw your poop out the window, but you live in a basement apartment. Cave, probably not the world's best thing to do.
No.
Some came to same self. That's great. We actually see the plague happening in the game. Graphic standards of cleanliness, like what's called Fireland, where they just get rained on a lot. Vipers, that can have a plus and a minus. If it rains a lot and we're letting things rot, that's going to attract pestilence and vermin instead of just wash things away. It was a Matt Smith episode.
Yeah, all the Matt Smith that I was like, oh, I have this coding stuff to do. I'll just have something going in the background.
Okay.
I need to go back and rewatch that. It sounds familiar though.
Well, there we go. So we get some Confederate military stuff about horsehair stitches. Anyway, all right. So Black Death impact. It's pretty big. This is going to wipe out entire portions of Eurasian populations. There are villages and towns that literally just completely cease to exist. Over the course of the entire run, starting in the really, really big one in the 1340s, this particular second epidemic is estimated to have killed about 210 million people, which is crazy. So the big push at the 1340s and 50s is responsible for like about 2 million of those people. But let's remember again, global populations are really lower than they are today. We've got 7 billion people today. We didn't hit a billion until the 1800s, right? We're talking about significant portions of the global population, and it's enormously large chunks of cities and countries that are just devastated by this stuff. And particularly here, some of the really bad versions of this are going to be the ones that hit Central Europe, so places like France, Germany. A lot of that anaerobic, well, no, not anaerobic. What's the breathy one?
Pneumonic.
Yeah, the pneumonic version is actually going to catch out really, really bad in places like France and kills a whole ton of people. Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 days and you're dead. You learn all of your history by watching Doctor Who. There we go, right? When are we covering cooties? What's up, Schmalt? You read some of the first pornographic novels and had a secluded family in the woods setting. Yeah. We would, Lumpy, if you want to talk about the history of pornography, catch me off stream and let me tell you some stuff that we know, because it's weird stuff, man. And being a young pubescent guy that's interested in history, suffice to say,
if there are human men, there's porn.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. So during the plague. Okay. All right. So then we have the third plague, or the third epidemic. And this one's actually pretty recent. So during the really bad times in France and such, what was the percentage of the mortality? It's really hard to say, Shema Knight. This is, of course, the famous thing that might have literally killed like half of the population of Europe. Some estimates go as high as to say that it killed like 2/3 of the population of Europe, but I don't think we can necessarily go that high. No, I can't do history of pornography. Not on Twitch. No, that would be a no-no. That's why I said catch me off stream. So I don't even know what I would share for photos.
Yeah,
just like black bars on everything. That'd be an interesting stream. Yeah, it would.
Lots of eggplant emojis.
Yeah, lots of. But think of all the chonky horses. I don't no, let's not. History of erotic literature. I don't know. Maybe, I guess if I read it, it wouldn't be TOS. I don't know. I don't know what I would do with that. I'd be very careful about that. Lots of interesting pottery. Yeah, there's some interesting pottery that I could show or not show. It's okay. It's fine. I mean, that's what we expect here on his Adventures in History. Civil wartime pornography. Oh, yeah. That's where the term hooker comes from, sci-fi. I know that you're probably there already, but hookers. We call prostitutes hookers because Hooker, the leader of the head general of the Union Army, took over and was very unpopular. And one of the ways he tries to increase his popularity was by bringing lots of prostitutes that would follow his army. And so they were called hookers women, or just hookers. So there you go. And now you know the rest of the story, right? Anyway, so third plague pandemic. We know a lot about this one because it happened in response to specific events. So in the mid-1800s, of course, places like China are becoming more and more industrialized. And we know that central China right here had previously not been necessarily overly involved with a lot of this stuff. The European colonization of China was mostly in the region that we've been talking about historically when we talked about China. But some of this internal stuff up here, especially like Yunnan, which is a region right around in here, had not been particularly densely colonized or industrialized. So around this period of time, there were a whole bunch of mineral deposits found out this way, things like copper and zinc and iron, things that everybody wants because we're industrializing, and there's a giant population boom that blew up this region's population, just completely blew stuff up. And one of the things that happened because of this is that there's a sort of a nascent population of bugs in that region, right? These things that were Yersinia pestis carriers just sort of propagated in this area. And when everybody ran to that area in 1855, guess what? Lots of folk caught the plague. And because of this area being tied into the larger industrial activity of China, this is going to end up making its way out to the coastline, specifically to Hong Kong, because the the industrial ties are going to move along the lines that the Europeans had built, specifically here the British. And from Hong Kong, it's going to hit into the larger British trade network. So if we're looking at the map here, we see Yunnan here moving to Hong Kong, and then moving over here. Let's remember that India and all of this territory was part of the larger British Empire, and during this time in the middle 1800s, England is actually fighting with Russia for control of the Central Asian area, which is referred to as the Great Game. So we get British exports coming over here into Central Asia to fuel the war effort, and then basically everywhere else, right? So we see it coming down here to Australia, which of course is, British, over here in South Africa, which is British, and India, which is British at that time. So I've missed so much in chat here because I had to say stuff and get off of the tangents. History of paints and pigments, it could happen if you ever get a 6-point beer. All of their different beer names are for old porn magazines. We're still talking about pornography. They cracked down on banning pornography materials in the military. Yeah, because people were bored and wanted to do things. Learn something new every day, but you forget 2 things every day. Well, at least you come out ahead in one way or another. Hooker and sideburns came from the Civil War. Thanks, Ambrose Burnsides. I did a study on Egyptian blue in the university, made out of ground up beetles or lapis lazuli. You do love that one. I don't even know what hookers and sideburns are during the Civil War. Okay. Everyone, while we're all here, we need to think of something to commemorate on the stream on Thursday. I've got ideas about that. Yes, Shane is a vampire. Where did that even come from? Moonshine stream. I don't drink, Lumpy, so that's going to be out of the question.
I'm all for a taco stream.
I don't know if I want to eat on stream. I think that's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't drink at all, at all. Okay, once and for all, I do not have a hot tub. There are no hot tubs in my area that I can use without spending approximately $1,000 a night. I'm also not moving my entire rig to the bathroom to sit in a regular tub. The hot tub thing is a goof that would be funny for approximately 5 minutes, and that would be the end of it, because then it would just be a regular stream with me sitting in a tub. I'm also not sitting in a kiddie pool. I appreciate the love of the hot tub thing. I don't think it's that funny.
Do you go outside?
And now Brittany has to go take the dog outside. Anyway, third pandemic. It's bad. It's all over the place. This one does not last as long. It is luckily only going to last about 100 years. The last of the big outbreaks happened in 1960, though. So from 1855 to 1960, we're still going to have this particular version active. Now, one of the things that happens because of this is a lot of continents are going to get exposed to the plague when they had never been exposed before. So Australia has exposure to the plague, and the Americas get exposure to the plague, which of course is going to introduce a whole new biome for these people or for these little bugs to propagate in. And turns out that America doesn't actually do a really good job of preventing a plague that came from China. And it turns out that the government kind of pretended like it didn't happen and wasn't a big deal.
It's kind of our thing.
Yeah, it's kind of our thing, right? Because when plague showed up over here in San Francisco, it showed up with a whole bunch of Chinese laborers that were specifically working out here in the larger western area, mostly building railroads. And they were dying really, really high numbers. And the government of San Francisco just kind of decided there's no plague here. And they took all these bodies out of the city and kind of just very poorly disposed of them, which actually spread the plague because, you know, what happens when all of the rats start eating all of the dead plague bodies? Well, guess what? They get plague too, and then you end up
scurry off.
Yeah, scurrying off into the distance. Yeah, and they kind of hushed it up, and now plague is kind of weird. Something not to learn, something, yeah, something like that, right? Okay, so see, you were not the one who brought it up this time. Okay, yeah. Too much risk of a random priest coming by and blessing the water. Hot tub history stream. What's up, girl Forrest? Good to see you. Hot tub time machine, green screen hot tub. Okay, what are we talking about? Yeah, America not doing something good. Yeah, pretty much. Are the rats just carriers, or did they die of the plague? They don't usually die of it.
No,
do they?
die.
They will? So how do they pass it on? Oh, I guess the rats eat other rats. Because rats will eat anything, including themselves. So.
And of course, you know, the fleas are still biting them.
Oh, yeah. So the fleas are passing it between the rats, too. Yeah. Are there mass graves of Chinese railroad workers out there? Absolutely, Cave. All over the southwest and central parts of the west. Absolutely, there are mass graves of Chinese railroad workers. Plagues would be way more interesting if it was less bugs and more tigers. A tiger infestation? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't like that at all. Just hard no on that. Hard no. Okay, so if we're looking at today, these are areas where there are still plague, and we still get plague reports from all of these areas. There were people that got plague in 2020 during lockdown because people started going out into the western part of the nation here and hiking around in these middle of nowhere areas and ran into various varmints that had plague. The good thing about it today is if you catch plague, you basically go to the doctor and they give you a round of pretty lame basic antibiotics. Like amoxicillin, like one of the most basic antibiotics, will kill your Yersinia pestis pretty easily. So if you get plague today, you're going to be fine, as long as you actually have access to medical care. But you can guess that a lot of these places down here in South America and Southeast Asia and Central Asia might not have access to that stuff. So we were earlier talking about Tajikistan. This is it right here. Note, this whole area, it's pretty bad when it comes to the plague. Yeah, Bigfoot is a plague carrier. That's why you don't see him over here, right? Bigfoot lives over in the west. This is sort of Sasquatch territory. Right.
He only carries the blurry, pixelated plague.
Yeah, the plague that makes you blurry and hard to photograph. So plague is still out there, and you can still catch it. And it's a weird thing, but yeah, you can totally run into it and end up with the plague. So, all right. I don't think I gave you the death total. So as an impact of that third pandemic wave, we do now have plague on all of the continents except for Australia. They were able to sort of somehow contain theirs, which is weird. But it killed about 15 million people, which is no small total, but compared to the Black Death or even that of the Plague of Justinian, this is probably a lot lower death toll per capita than the earlier ones. What about Antarctica? Yeah, nobody got plague down in Antarctica. Luckily, they just sort of left that alone. At that point, they weren't really doing very much on Antarctica in the 1850s.
That one guy that's like in a research station. Like he's fine.
I don't even know if they had research stations on Antarctica. I know that they were doing, just the thing, right? It's just the aliens that are going to mimic life forms, right? And that's bad enough. We don't really need any more of that. One of the greatest horror movies ever. So great. All right, so that's all for me. and we actually ended up about the time that we normally would. So if there are any more questions about this stuff, you are absolutely welcome to ask. If you've got point redemptions that you want to do, you can do that. Otherwise, we will go look to see who might be hanging around to do a raid. And I think I see where we're going to go if he hangs on long enough. Your explorer looks like he's on the moon with the globe behind him. Oh, little adventure Shane down there in the corner. He's pretty great. Pretty great stuff. Last call for 100 stream ideas. I've got some ideas for that. I'm pretty sure.
I have plans on having a margarita, not on stream while watching your stream.
How are you going to make a margarita? Do you have the stuff to make a margarita?
I can go buy the stuff to make a margarita.
Oh man, that works. But okay, I didn't know that we had margarita ingredients. May the 5th, 100 years ago. What's it like to be in front of the camera again?
I don't know. It's weird.
Do you think you could do it more frequently?
No, probably not.
Considering how long it took you to prep for that. If you had to stream again on Thursday, could you stream?
No. Yeah, I don't see how you do it. I'm very tired right now. My brain's like.
Yeah, it's just a thing. That's my job. I mean, I stayed up and talk all day for a job, so this doesn't really change most of what I do. I just have to click buttons differently. So, all right. Let's see what's going on. There's plenty of news to talk about, unfortunately, but maybe that's the whole photo stream. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the news. Of course, there's the Mississippi thing where Mississippi decided to sue the federal government and try to get Roe versus Wade thrown out, which looks like it's probably going to happen. There's the whole thing in Ukraine still going on. There's a whole bunch of mess up in 60 years of Doctor Who history. Brittany's great on cam. Everyone that heard of that other place. Bonnie only put you on the spot.
Yes,
for the first
I need to stop in there.
Is that the web developer community?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should go talk to them.
It's just like every Friday at noon. It seems like I always get busy.
Just put put an
know.
alert in the schedule sometime. Were there any plagues that remain active but don't spread outside of the environment, like those dense South American rainforest regions? If we're talking specifically about Yersinia pestis, which is like the plague, there are some pockets down here in South America that still have it. But if what you're asking is, are there any infections or viruses that are endemic to populations, and because of the isolation of those populations, it doesn't get out very frequently? Maybe. I don't know of any of them off the top of my head. Do you know of any? Oh no! What's that little island with like the brain thing that goes on? And it's
Papua New Guinea.
But it's
the prions.
Yeah, the prion disease. But what's it's called something like Fudu, or Kuru.
Kuru, yeah.
Kuru, that's what it is. So there's a prion disease, which is like basically this jacked up thing where this little bit of DNA gets into your system.
It's a protein.
It's a protein? Okay, so you tell them what a prion is because you're better at this.
It's like it's basically, so proteins are supposed to be folded in a three-dimensional specific way, and when they come unfolded, they're just called misfolded. So prion is just a misfolded protein, but it like attaches to other proteins, like proteins in your brain, and causes them to come unfolded as well, and they make these plaques in your brain.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
So Kuru is in a very isolated region of the world down here in Southeast Asia, like right around this area right here, some of these little islands. So it's pretty gross. And it kills you in a pretty bad way. I think that's what you were asking. If that wasn't what you were asking, you're welcome to restate, but I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. Sinn Féin looks like they're going to win the majority of votes on election on Thursday. That doesn't surprise me. especially with the mess that's going on in uh, with the Brexit talks and how they're still technically pretending that Northern Ireland and Ireland are not separated when they actually are, and there were talks about barricades and stuff like that, and I suspected that was going to be a backlash against that. I didn't necessarily call it maybe to be a majority. Yeah, the DUP played. Yeah, yeah. So Vipers and I are talking specifically here about political parties within Ireland, and I've been tangentially keeping up with that, and I kind of expected that to happen. All right, other questions? Anything else? Otherwise, we is about to go do a raid. We're gonna go do a raid. We're going streaking. Not actually, but Old School is a great movie. All right, not seeing anything else. Next time you'll see me is on Thursday night. We'll be doing Adventures in History, episode 100. And I've got some ideas of some stuff to do that are going to be a little bit different. We're probably not going to have the old-fashioned sit down and do like one history thing. I've got some kind of more interactive stuff that we might end up doing. So that's the plan. Did you see Brittany?
I'll be on the other side of the stream.
Did you see Vern say hi?
Hey, Fern. Yes, I saw you earlier. Sorry I did not say hi.
History's top 100. I'll just put it to you this way: we've always joked about having a test, and there's your hint. Yeah, maybe. All right.
Maybe I won't be on the other side.
We promised cheese. So, anyway, caveman history class just asked what they did yesterday. I'm not sure.
Top 100 assassinations.
Assassin. All right. We are going to go raid Steve Sketches, who is a gigantic supporter of the stream. We basically never get to raid him because he doesn't stream this late. He had some stuff going on with his kids today and started streaming a little bit later. Steve is an amazing artist and is an incredibly kind individual and is very generous with his time and has been a consistent supporter of the stream. So we're totally going to go raid Steve and show some love back to this guy. As always, yell our adventure in the chat, and then you can throw all those beautiful adventure hat emotes in the chat if you got it. Otherwise, I'll see everybody on Thursday. We'll have some fun and kind of goof off a little bit. But until then, see you around.